My name is Jill Stenzler-Engelman. I am 49 years old. I live in Seminole, Florida, and I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in 2005.
What is the state of your diagnosis now? Where are you with your fight against cancer?
Well, currently I was diagnosed 6 years ago, and I've been through 5 surgeries and chemotherapy and numerous other treatments in the past 6 years. And currently I have a recurrence, which the last CAT scan showed major abdominal involvement. My last surgery was in November of last year, and I had multiple nodes removed and multiple cancerous lesions excised. And now I am back to kind of where I started. So we're starting over with a lot of diffuse disease in the abdomen.
Tell us how. When did you do chemotherapy, and after that result, what made you start looking elsewhere?
I did chemotherapy after my initial diagnosis in 2005 and my surgery. I actually had 2 surgeries then because my first surgery I went in without any disease, without any signs or symptoms of disease. I was going in simply for prophylactic surgery, which was preventative, because I knew I was at high risk. My mother had ovarian cancer, and I also tested positive for the genetic mutation, which increases the likelihood of women developing breast and ovarian cancer. So I decided in 2005 to have a prophylactic hysterectomy. And at that time, the pathology came back a week later, and to all of our shock and surprise, it came back positive for disease. So then I had a second surgery immediately after that, which was the staging surgery. They went back and they did the total laparotomy with multiple lymph node dissections, and it was pretty clean, but the recommendation was to do chemotherapy just sort of as an insurance policy. So I went ahead and did that, and after that, I was good. I was good for 3.5 years. I was just monitoring blood levels of my cancer antigen for the next 3.5 years. I did really well until I started seeing a rise in my CA-125, and then I had another scan, a PET scan, which showed a pelvic mass, and that led to the third surgery. The pelvic mass was excised in block, and there was no further treatment recommended at that time. And then that brought us to the last one in November, which was diffuse disease pretty much all over the pelvis and some of the abdomen. And the reason why I elected not to have additional chemotherapy was because I'm a nurse and I do a lot of research. And in my research, what I learned about chemotherapy was a lot of the drugs are dated. And my mother, having been through ovarian cancer 10 years ago, was having the same drugs that they were recommending for me, so it wasn't necessarily progressive. I had numerous friends who were going through chemotherapy at the time, and they were not doing well. And more research was surfacing, which showed that chemotherapy knocks down the immune system, and I was looking for something to boost my immune system. So I wanted to keep everything top notch and top level, and I went to various health institutes, and I changed my diet, my exercise. I was doing yoga and all kinds of really good mind, body, and soul, a good protocol for that. And I was even doing intravenous vitamin therapy. And at the time, my body was not really responding, and I knew things were progressing, and I knew that I needed to do something that was going to allow my immune system to kick into gear and recognize the cancer and destroy it, because I otherwise had an attacked immune system. I wasn't the kind of person that was always sick. I never had colds, and I was able to fight off bacteria and viruses. So my big question was, why wasn't my body able to fight off this cancer? And through my research, I found the answer.
And what was the answer?
The answer was the research that Dr. Rigdon Lentz was doing maybe 15, 20 years ago in California showed that cancer cells put out a protective like protein, almost like a shield, which prevents the immune system from recognizing the cancer cells, attacking and destroying them. And Dr. Lenz not only recognized that this was happening, but he was also able to isolate that substance that the cancer cells produce, and we call those inhibitors. So those inhibitors, he then had to figure out how do you remove them from the bloodstream. And he came up with the brilliant idea of using something similar to a hemodialysis machine, which is what kidney patients are on when their renal function fails. So he was able to devise filters that would filter out this inhibitor. And he did all his trials in California and put cancer patients on the dialysis machine and filtered out the inhibitors and literally saw the immune system attacking and destroying their tumors, cancer cells. So it was very cutting edge, and it was great news at the time. And he was having a lot of successes and did all his trials in California, and then had some issues with the FDA and wound up moving his practice to Germany. And so that's where I contacted him, and numerous phone calls and emails back and forth, and we finally set up to where I would come out to Germany and get on the machine.
And were there any reservations before going out to Germany? Like, of course, the cost would be the biggest, but were there any reservations of, is this the right thing to do? Is this the right treatment?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, you always think about, what's right and what's the best. But I have done so much research, and this just made so much sense to me. It was just such a logical, reasonable approach. And the fact that it was non-toxic and there's no threshold. Like with chemotherapy, you can only give so much of the drug because eventually it's too much. I mean, you kill the patient with the drugs. It's so toxic and caustic. And so there's no toxic threshold. You can be on the machine as often as you need to be. The results were really astonishing. And speaking with Dr. Lenz and his staff in Germany, I got a really good comfort level, and I really felt like it was the place for me. And, my husband and I made the decision collectively that it was the right decision for me. And since my husband likes to play poker, he says, this is the hand we're dealt. We're now all in. And we decided to put all our chips in the pot, and we're all in, and we are definitely believers of the treatment. We've gotten phenomenal results so far. I know that there's more work to do, and we'll be heading back to Germany soon. The reservations were not so much about the treatment, they were more about the logistics. It is so expensive, it is so far away. I have 2 daughters and a lot of friends and family, and that was the difficult part. That was the difficult part of the decision. But as far as, believing in the treatment and believing in what I was doing, I had spoken to patients who had gotten great results. I was even able, while I was out there, to look at CAT scans of befores and afters of patients who had, really gotten great results. So it was very confirming, and I still believe it's the right thing. I just know that it's not an overnight fix, and I know that it's going to take a little more work.
I want to do one thing. Good stuff. Good start.
Okay.
What were and before going to Germany, I'm sure you had spoken to some other doctors about going to Germany and about what you're doing. What were their reservations about you doing this?
I didn't get a whole lot of support from the traditional medical community here, although my family, and many of them are doctors, were very supportive. But the traditional doctors in this country I guess it's a familiarity issue, and they're only familiar with what they know and what they have in their arsenal. The doctor who did my surgery in November wouldn't even consider anything other than chemotherapy. He said, if you don't do this, you're just not gonna live. I mean, you've got to do, really heavy duty chemotherapy. And so he was not supportive at all. This was my gynecological oncologist that did my last surgery. And he just wasn't familiar with, all these other, he said, you'll be, spending your time and your money and basically wasting your time and money. And that was the response that I got from the traditional medical community. Although, like I said, my brother-in-law is a cardiologist. He was completely supportive. I have another friend who's a doctor who actually just recently lost his wife and told me that he would have liked to have taken his wife out to Germany, but unfortunately it was too late and she wasn't able to travel. So I did get some support from some traditional medical doctors and then not so much support from others.
When you made the decision to go, what were your thoughts? Like, what were you thinking before you got on the plane to go out there?
Well, before I got on the plane, I was pretty sick. I had ascites, which is fluid in the abdomen, and my belly was filling up with fluid. Every week I was getting it tapped by paracentesis. So my thoughts before getting out to Germany were, please, whoever's listening, just let me get on that plane and let me get to Germany and let me get on the machine, because I didn't even know if I was going to make the trip, the distance and the 8 hours, overseas and everything. So my thoughts before going out there were just, let me get there. I was just concerned about the trip. But once I got out there, it's a beautiful part of the world. The people were so friendly. I had an instant camaraderie with the staff. They all speak English, so that helps. And they're all so professional. The clinic is beautiful. It's clean, but not, you don't get that clinical feeling. The walls are painted this butterscotch yellow. So sorry.
It just crossed my mind. I looked at the thing and I was like, we should go to Central Bullock.
Everybody says that. I can't believe you just said that. The doctor in Germany almost fell off his chair when he met me. And you have the consultation.
In Germany.
Uh-huh. And so I had only met him by email, and of course we spoke on the phone. So I'm sitting in his office and we're having this consultation and we're talking. Of course, I brought all my scans and my reports and pathology, and I had folders of stuff. I didn't want to forget anything because it wasn't like I could just run home. So we had also scanned documents into the computer. So we had everything on paper and digital. We had it all. So we're talking, and he made the observation that you just made, that I could be Sandra Bullock's sister. And I said, just wish I had her payroll. Yeah.
So what were we talking about? Before you went to, you just wanted to get there, which is good.
Yeah, I just wanted to get there. And then I met the staff, and everybody was really professional. And the clinic was so warm and comforting, and the beds have all down comforters, and there's all heating blankets that you lay on. And, like I said, the walls are painted this buttercream yellow, so it's not really clinical feeling. The meals are all organic, vegetarian. Everything's served on bone china. So there's not like disposable, what you get in the hospitals here, all that plastic disposable stuff that they put in the microwave. That's, I don't know.
No,
so,
yeah. I was going to say, also describe for me, we're going a little ahead, but I want to describe for me after you did a consultation,
okay.
You're about to start.
You want me to tell you the sequence of events?
Well, no, I want to know, I'm kind of going ahead, but I want to know when you would look out the window
Hmm.
and while you're doing your treatment and stuff, what were your thoughts and what were you feeling? I know it's kind of hard to
Yeah.
think about that, but like you're setting your atmosphere, where you were, where you are in your life. What were you thinking at that moment? Like I know, like for me, I would look out the window. Like my first thought would be, why can't I do this at home? You know,
Hmm.
what were you thinking at that
Well, first of all, when you look out the window in the clinic, you see the Alps. So you're really in a beautiful place in the world. But I would stop and think to myself, what am I doing here? I am 49 years old. I am young. I am healthy. My family is 4,000 miles away. My friends can't call me. My sisters can't visit me. It was just, you're going through this. And yeah, my first thought was, why can't I be doing this at home? And why isn't my insurance paying for it? That was, unfortunately, with advanced stage ovarian cancer, the survival rates are glim. I mean,
time? And you called it early, fairly early.
the initial prophylactic surgery was early stage disease, but the fact that I, had chemotherapy then, which was, for early stage disease, there's not too many guidelines available, but I did do the chemotherapy. That was sort of my insurance policy. I still had a recurrence 3.5 years later, and then I had another recurrence after that. So I guess it was considered early stage disease, but obviously there's cells elsewhere, and the chemo only gets cells that are dividing at the time the chemotherapy is given. So there's microscopic stuff, so you can never say that you've gotten it all and everything's clear.
The other side.
Oh goodness, this is a
No, that's good.
struggle.
No, that's good.
Okay.
What's good, what you're giving me is stuff that I can use because it's like you're making my job so much easier.
Oh,
Just
so
like
glad.
just by like your information, all I would have to do is just like fact check it and make sure, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
just say it,
yeah.
then I know.
And then just get the numbers. Now, when you get the sources, do you also?
Yeah, we'll say when we got the sources.
Okay.
Stuff, yeah. I want the question I have. I want to wait for, but it's like at any point were you given a time, like you don't?
I'm sure that if I asked, I would have been. I never asked. I never wanted that number, that information, that timeline of,
Because if
you
you
know,
don't
you.
mind, you probably won't ever hear me ask any of the questions. I'm gonna edit it to where you are answering whatever question I asked
Okay.
with the question. So yeah, just tell me like what was that time that you didn't ask for?
I don't know.
No, I mean like when you answer your question, so, like I never wanted to know how much.
Oh,
Time,
okay.
what
Yeah.
was the time?
Okay. I never wanted to know how much time I had.
Like,
I never wanted to know how much time I had, so I never asked that question. I know because I'm a nurse and I'm a researcher, I do tons of research. I knew things weren't looking great. I knew I had already, passed the 5-year mark, and I was doing okay. And so I never asked. I kind of have this coping mechanism that I call denial. And I'm not sure if that's healthy or not, but it works for me. And I think everybody's entitled to cope however they can best get through the day. My coping mechanism that worked best for me was denial. I never thought I was as sick as I was. I never asked how much time I had left. I just didn't allow myself to go there. Of course there are days you wake up and you question everything. But then there are days you wake up and you got your kids, you got your family, you got your husband, you got your friends, and life is beautiful. And you learn to cherish those moments.
Do you have you looked at it as, and this is something I just kind of thought about, and I mentioned this before. Your path in your career was to be a research nurse,
Mm,
and you handed these cards,
yeah.
and it's almost like you were meant to go through this. So, and it seemed like you were meant to go through this and succeed because of the path that you have and that knowledge that you have and the strength that you have and the capability of handling this. And it's like, did you see that? Like, because that's what I see.
It's interesting because I never thought of myself as being the sick one. I was the nurse and I took care of everybody else, and I always made things better. And I did that for other people. I never thought of myself as being the recipient of the care. So when my mother got sick, I thought, oh, well, this is where I come in, because now I'm the nurse. Now I can do all the research. And, I wasn't able to, like I said, we had her for 4 years from her diagnosis. But I never thought of it being myself. I never thought I was going to be the one to get sick. So it's interesting that, you think about my life and my education and my career and my knowledge as being used for myself. Of course, now I take all the research and I apply it to myself. I probably know more about ovarian cancer and what's out there than most people. I share a lot of my research with doctors and oncologists and whoever wants to know what's out there. I definitely share. But, I never thought that I would have to use this information for myself.
Um, Ovarian cancer, is it hereditary?
It does have a hereditary component, and there is a gene. They've actually isolated the gene. It's the BRCA1 and 2. They're actually gene mutations. And amongst the general population, it's, oh, damn. Didn't we turn off the phone?
No, this is amongst the general
Yeah.
population.
Okay, the genetic mutation that increases your risk for breast and ovarian cancer is called the BRCA, BRCA1 and 2 genes that they've identified. And amongst the general population, I think it's about 8% of the population carries the gene, the genetic mutation. Amongst the Ashkenazi Jewish population, it's about 5 times as much. So it significantly jumps to about 35 to 40%.
Is there a way to prevent, like, I mean, how do you prevent ovarian cancer? Or if there is.
Yeah, I guess the question is, can you prevent cancer in general? And I think if you're a known risk, like I knew my mother had ovarian cancer, I knew she tested positive for the genetic mutation. So my sisters and I both got tested. At that time, again, I'm the nurse. I don't get sick. I help other people. The recommendation was to eventually consider having prophylactic surgery, and that's what a lot of women elect to do to prevent them from getting ovarian cancer. And that's what I elected to do. When I had my surgery in 2005, it was preventative. I had no evidence of disease. And I was actually, when I went to my gynecological oncologist and said, I'm ready to have the surgery, he said, why don't you go home and think about it? This is elective surgery. It's a pretty big step, because losing your ovaries, it's not just surgery, it's a whole hormonal issue that women have to deal with, because you're thrown into surgical menopause at that time. And I said no, because at that time I had thought about it for several years and I'd made up my mind, and I did elect to have the prophylactic surgery to hopefully prevent having the disease. Unfortunately, I already had the disease by the time I elected to have the prophylactic surgery. I was 43 years old.
What do you want people to know cancer fighter. That's what I say.
Yeah. I want people to know that there are options. When you are sitting in your oncologist's office and you hear those 3 dreaded words, you have cancer, I mean, your world is shaken. You're turned upside down. You are implanted with fear. And there's this sense of urgency, and we have to act now, and we need to do this surgery right now, and then we need to start chemo as soon as possible. I'm here to tell you that you don't have to be fearful, and you don't have to act now. Take your time and do your research and talk to people. And I talk to people all over the world. For some reason, my contacts have, because of all the research that I've done and where I've been with my journey, the word has gotten out, and so many of my friends have passed my name on. And I email people all over, just telling them, sit back, take a deep breath, look into this option, look into that option. Don't feel like you're, under this pressure cooker situation where you have to decide yesterday. I was there. It's a really scary place to be. And then you make decisions based on fear. And when you make decisions based on fear, it's probably not the right decision. It's better to make a decision based on knowledge and conferencing with others and getting as much information as possible, and make a decision that resonates with you, something that sits right, that feels right, that sounds right, that just when you throw it out, into the universe, it comes back to you in a positive way, and not to be fearful of it. I mean, I went into chemotherapy really fearful. I was crying when I walked into the infusion center. And what I realized was that I had gone to all my mother's chemotherapy appointments, and she did not do well. And I watched what she went through. And when I walked into the infusion center, I lost it. And I knew it wasn't right for me. It just didn't feel right. And now I'm in a place that I'm not afraid, because I responded to the therapy, the treatment in Germany. And, the doctor out there and the staff out there and the nurses, they've told me once you respond, you always respond, because it's an immunologic response. It's your body responding. All they're doing is removing an inhibitor that's got a little, a blockage. It's like if you're driving down the road and you hit a roadblock and you can't drive anymore, but if the roadblock's removed, then you can go forward. So I'm just going to have some roadblocks removed. It's those little bumps in the road, but
how do you take each day?
Oh, one day at a time. The days are beautiful. I mean, I'm just so grateful for every day. I have beautiful friends, amazing supportive family. When I came home from Germany this last time, even though I told my husband no fanfare, I guess that didn't apply to the 23 people that were standing at the airport with balloons and signs and banners and horns that were totally crazy when I got off the plane. But I have to tell you, as exhausted as I was, it was totally invigorating. It just lifted my spirits, and it was great seeing everybody. It was a real homecoming. It was a real reunion.
What was the first one I was about to ask? I was like thinking of one thing.
Oh, no.
Come back to me real quick. Because there was something I was following up on something. Just coming back. You were saying that chemotherapy was just not for you and what you're going through. And however, chemotherapy helped your sister. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, my sister's less than a year out.
Less than a year out. But
I do know people that it has helped.
Right. It's just that the thing, it just seems that you, like you said, you want people to know that there are options.
Oh, yeah, I didn't really finish that.
You want that to come you know, if the government, if America didn't block certain treatments like Dr. Lynch, then it would allow Americans more options to go towards. Um, to, you know, discuss that with you.
Okay. Yes, especially younger women to have options because in younger women, cancers are usually more aggressive. And I know people that have had chemotherapy and have had positive outcomes, and you know, and that maybe it was the right choice for them. But I also find it very frustrating that we are in this country because of whatever regulations it being, whether the government, whether the pharmaceutical companies, whether it's just lack of knowledge from the physicians. Um, it's very frustrating to not be given those options. Um, there are books of alternative therapies out there. There are clinics all over the world that are doing hyperthermia, and they're, you know, treatments like what I'm doing, immunophoresis, and um, you know, there are places all over the world. There's actually places in this country where alternative therapies are being done, and they're not getting support by the government. They're not getting insurance um, reimbursements. And to me, it's very sad and very frustrating that people think they're locked into, you know, surgery, chemo, or radiation. Like those are the three options that are recognized as viable options for cancer therapy in this country. And I'm living proof that that's not all there is. And it's not always the healthiest way to go, and it's not always the best option. And if you have the means to do the research and find what's available out there, um, you know, it's worth exploring.
Um, how do you, what do you want um, your daughters to take from your journey?
Mm. My daughters are struggling a little bit with my journey because they know I did prophylactic surgery and I missed the boat a little bit because I already had disease by the time I had my ovaries removed. So unfortunately, my daughters are thinking that their path is going to lead them to eventually having prophylactic surgery. And I don't, as young women, I don't want them thinking about having their ovaries removed or other body parts because that's not where you want your 19 and 21-year-old daughters' minds to be. And when we talk about it, we talk about you know, living healthy lives, having fun, going out, networking, meeting people, eating right, exercising. Both my daughters get that. They've seen, you know, the path that we have taken with our lives as far as diet and exercise are concerned, and they've adapted those. We drink all kinds of juices and protein shakes and algae, and have a far infrared sauna. I have hydrogen peroxide diffuser in my room. I have all kinds of healthy modalities that we've incorporated in addition to, you know, that's become our life and our lifestyles. And that's what I try to teach my daughters. Live a healthy life, be happy. I don't want them to think about, you know, getting sick or having a negative future. Unfortunately, they've seen their grandmother and their mother go through, you know, what we've been going through. So it's difficult for them. But we try to stay focused on the positive and just live a healthy life and be happy, because I think that's the biggest part of being happy and not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow. You know, enjoy today.
Talk about the hurricane.
Oh, yeah.
In his you know, his being the ideal husband behind all this.
I call my support system, and I'll quote Bette Midler, the wind beneath my wings, because when you feel like you're falling flat and you're not, you know, rising to the occasion, you get a phone call from a friend, or you get a little gift in the mail, or My college roommates just sent me this charm bracelet that had all kind of positive, inspirational messages on it. And that lifts you, and that's the little bit of wind beneath your wings that gets you in flight. And if my friends and extended family are the wind beneath my wings, I call my husband my hurricane because he is the 150-mile-an-hour winds that come along and pick you up, and on a daily basis. Because I told you my coping mechanism is denial, and I like to be positive and happy. And when I do have my moments, I'm usually with my husband, so he knows everything, and he gets to shoulder all the burden. And he's also a fixer, and he likes to make things better. And this has just been a little bit of a struggle for us because we're not better yet. We're not there yet. And we've been, it hasn't been every day for 6 years, but we've been through this for many years, and it gets exhausting. It's a little bit tiresome. And, we're very excited about this new treatment, and we stay focused on positive, on getting back on the machine, getting back to Germany, and just finishing up these last little bits of little things that I need to take care of now. I have another scan in a week, and because I have to have a scan before I go back to Germany. And I know I have some issues because symptomatically, I know that things aren't 100% there yet, but together, we will make it happen. I mean, he's absolutely the best support in the whole world. He even surprised me. Last time I was in Germany, I wound up staying there longer than I had anticipated because I was getting such a positive response. It just seemed silly to stop, when I could keep going. So I took a couple of breaks in between cycles, and we had been apart for 4 weeks at the time, and we Skyped, so we were able to see each other and talk to each other. But we celebrate our 25th anniversary this summer, and we had never been apart for 4 weeks. I mean, that was like a long time for the two of us to be apart. So the following week was Mother's Day, and I was with my daughters. They actually flew out to Germany to be with me for Mother's Day that week, which was just really beautiful. Actually, another friend gave us his frequent flyer miles so that the girls could fly out, which was, these are the kinds of gifts that just the wind, the beautiful people have come forward on so many levels. So the girls flew out with the friends' frequent flyer miles because we couldn't afford to send both of them out. And then we were at dinner with another patient from the clinic with her husband. And everybody at the table knew, except me, that I was getting an unbelievable surprise that night. And as my younger daughter took out her little video camera, we were making a little toast, and I felt these arms kind of embrace me from behind, and I turned around, and there was Greg, my husband, who had surprised me and shown up at the restaurant. And I knew that his niece was graduating college that weekend, and we had discussed that he was going to be at her graduation. And when I turned around, he was in Germany. So it was really special. It was, so I've had a lot of really special moments like that. I had another friend that I didn't know, a visitor, I should say. I had a visitor come to the clinic and came to the office, and they said, "Jill, your visitor's here. Your guest is here." And I said, "Who's that? Who would be coming?" And at that time, my younger sister was with me. So I said, "Robin, can you, go find out who that is?" So she went down the hall to find out who was in the office, and she walks in with this man that I had never met before, and he was carrying a bouquet of beautiful multicolored roses, and he walked into the room, the treatment room, and I looked at him and had no recognition of him. And I thought for sure he was visiting the other patient and they had just gotten the names wrong or something. And he said, "No, I'm here to see you. My name is Noah. I work with your sister-in-law and I have business in Germany. I was in Munich and I just took the train." He took the train from Munich to Prien, which is about an hour away. From Prien, walked to from the train station, walked to the clinic, which is also another couple miles, bought me flowers, and visited me. I never met the man. Of course, I had heard once he said he was Noah and worked with my sister-in-law, I kind of had heard the name and knew who he was, but it was those beautiful moments that that email that night that I sent out to my extended friends and family list was all about random acts of kindness. And how you can impact someone's life by just doing a simple gesture. So there were some beautiful moments. Oh, another thing, I was sitting outside during one of my breaks having lunch, and that was when Greg and the girls were there. And they said they were just running off to get something to eat and they'd be right back, so that was fine. Well, they came back with two other people, and they were young, and I looked and I recognized the female who was, I have two nieces that live in South Florida, and it was their girlfriend, and she was traveling through Europe, backpacking through Europe with her boyfriend, and the two of them had heard from my nieces that I was an hour train ride from Munich, and during their backpacking visit, they got off the train in Munich and called or emailed the girls or Skyped. Somehow they got in touch with the girls, and they knew what train Greg and the girls knew what train they were on, and they went and picked them up at the train station and brought them back to the clinic. So I had the most beautiful things happen to me, some really special moments. And I really connected with some of the other patients. When you travel this type of journey together and you're all on the same page and you're all feeling the same thing and you're going through very similar emotions, you get really, really close. The woman in the bed next to me was from Ireland, and we just connected on such a level. It was really funny because we would share snacks. I would bring some organic vegetables, and she had some really nice crackers and stuff. And we had one of those rolling tray tables between us. So I put the food on the tray, and then I would kick it with my foot so it would roll over to her. And then she would take what she wanted, put it back to me, and kick it back. So we really had some nice times together. And then the woman across from me, who we actually started on the exact same day and finished on the exact same day. So we were out there the entire almost 9 weeks that I was out there. We were together through everything. So we got extremely close, and we spent a lot of conversations about family and friends and life, and you just have to connect on a level when you're all going through that sort of experience.
It seems like that almost acts as as the treatment. It seems like all of that is a part of the treatment.
Absolutely. When I think about the location of the clinic, it's in one of the most beautiful places in Germany. It's in Bavaria, which is like the playground for Europeans. It's a big vacation spot. And you think about adjunctive therapy. What, in addition to being on the machine, what else is going on? What's your total experience like? Well, the water is so clean. You can drink the water out of the faucets. It's just wonderful. everywhere you look, you're surrounded by the Alps. You can look at the German Alps, the Swiss Alps, or the Austrian Alps. The people are so friendly and kind. The produce is mostly organic. They have very strict laws about pesticides and hormones. And the major industry in this little town, in addition to lumber, is cattle. And so the cows are, they're all free range. They're all grass fed. There's no pesticides, no hormones, no antibiotics. We make the joke, there's one little McDonald's in town and it's grass-fed beef. I mean, you can go to McDonald's and get a grass-fed organic, hamburger. The produce is just tastes better, and everything's just. I mean, I don't really do much dairy or meat, but when you're in Preen and everything is so clean and fresh and organic, the dairy industry is clean, and so the yogurts and the cheeses and everything else was really delicious, and that's all part of the healing process. Like you say, there's, in addition to bonding with the patients and sharing stories and supporting and uplifting each other, you're just in this very serene, beautiful, healing part of the world. The air is clean, the water's clean, and yeah, that's another part of the healing process. So as it would be really nice to not have to travel so far for the treatment, but the fact that you do, I feel like it's a beautiful place to have to go if you have to go.
And this will be my last question, unless there's anything. If there's anything else, I'll just bring you back. But I think one thing I want to know: what do you think is needed? I guess you kind of covered it, but what do you think the people of America? I know it's probably broad, but what do you think the people need to do, or what would you want to see them do in order to allow this type of treatment on our soil?
What I hope to happen from all of this is, like I said, I hope there's a bigger purpose and there's a reason for all of this. And I hope that purpose is to get the information known and to become an activist. I mean, I hope that, this goes global and that people start demanding to have other options and alternative treatments that are covered by their insurance companies. And I hope that I'm, an impetus to this change. And I'm not afraid to go to, Capitol Hill and lobby and, talk about my experience. And I would like to see this available to everyone in the United States. And my hope is that, people that see or hear this interview get inspired to become active. And there's a couple ways to do that, is by supporting the foundation, the International Immunology Foundation.org. Yeah, I actually said it wrong. It's
start up one thing to do.
Okay. My hope is that people that see this video or hear this interview become inspired, and they become inspired to become active, and they can demand from their physicians to present them with alternative options. They can demand from their politicians to allow some of these treatments to be performed in this country. And they can also go to the website at www.immunologyfoundation.org and make a donation to the International Immunology Foundation in Prien, Germany, which I believe is, cutting edge. It's brilliant, and the scientific evidence is there that the body innately wants to heal. And if we can help the body get to a point where the immune system can kick in, then, that's what's going to give you the long-term results. I know right now that there are things I'm physically unable to do in the short term. But I also know that once this treatment will afford me long-term opportunity to do all the things that, I can't do right now. And that's what I have to look forward to, is the long-term survival. When chemotherapy talks about survival rates of, the 5-year survival rate, I'm not looking at 5 years. I'm looking at 50 years. I don't want a 5-year survival rate. And, that's what I'm given with traditional medicine and chemotherapy is, this is the 5-year survival rate. And this is how you're going to do in the short term. Well, I'm not looking at short term. I was 43 years old when I was diagnosed. I had a child in middle school and a child in high school. I mean, I want to walk them down the aisle. I want to play with my grandchildren on the beach. I'm not looking at 5 years. So I believe that supporting the immune system is what's going to give you the long-term survival, because basically what you have is your body. Our bodies innately want to heal. And like I said, if it means having to remove an inhibitor, then I'll remove the damn inhibitor and go on with my life and look at the long-term survival. So that's what I focus on.
Cool. You did such a good job.
Oh,
Is there anything else that we probably missed?
I'm sure we'll think of a million things, but right now